Hello, everybody. This is Tisher, a professor with UMGC, and I am excited to be your professor for Math 105. Math 105 is called Topics in Mathematical Literacy. And in Math 105, because of that title, we're going to cover many kinds of different math topics. Perhaps one may not lead to another one. And so I like to think of Math 105 as like a buffet of many different math topics involved. So in other words, just like with a buffet, we're gonna get a little taste of this kind of math topic and that kind of math topic. Um, so with that, we can become a well-rounded person in math overall, hence the term mathematical literacy. So what kinds of things are we going to do in Math 105? All right, well, there's one main part of Math 105 is something called ALEKS. So you see right here, ALEKS, ALEKS, and this is an online interactive math program where you just go in anytime online and complete some problems and get graded for them right on the spot. Okay, and um, and it's great because you have the flexibility to work on your class at any time with no late penalty, and and get rewarded for it in return whenever you get something correct. So it's a great math program. It's very time consuming, so I don't recommend starting it or procrastinating with it too much or starting it too late. So please make sure to keep up with it as timely as you can. All right. Well, before we talk more about Math 105, again, my name is Tisher, and the Tisch is a word in German that means table. And a fisher is someone who fishes, a washer is someone who washes, and so a Tisher is someone who tables, not the waiter or waitress kind of tabling, but table maker. And somebody, perhaps along the way, looked at the word Tisher and they thought, well, there's a C in there that's silent. So why do we even need to have the C in there if we do not pronounce it? So let's just drop the letter C, and there's the abbreviated version of my name. It's like Fisher, except instead of F, it's a T. Okay, well, again, Math 105 is like a buffet of different math topics, and these topics are broken down into 7 modules. So the first module is course readiness. The second module is Consumer Math 1. The third module is exponential and logarithmic functions. The fourth module is Consumer Math 2. The fifth module is statistics. The sixth module is probability. And the seventh and final module is logic. So we're going to cover each module per week for a total of 7 weeks. Now, some classes last 7 weeks, some classes last 8 weeks, and so if we're in it for 8 weeks, if the class is for 8 weeks, we have a little bit more time to get through each of these modules. But in general, it's usually one module per week. So, what is course readiness? Well, course readiness involves some basic math and algebra. Perhaps some of those topics may be familiar to you, like just order of operations, or maybe combining like terms. Um, and we also may cover something that's less familiar called inductive and deductive reasoning. And that's some form of logic where you make decisions based on certain criteria. In Consumer Math 1, this is really where students and learners really like Math 105 because it deals with money. So in Consumer Math 1, we're going to cover things like percent increase and simple interest, which are very valuable whenever you deal with your own kind of financial situation. The next module is exponential and logarithmic functions. So it deals with graphing. So let me show you something very neat here. All right, so speaking of graphing, we have this interesting graph right here. Let me go back to the beginning. So the beginning we have a rectangle, and when you go to the next screen, what it does, it takes the rectangle and um, and makes three rectangles of it, but it cuts one rectangle in half and makes a triangle. So you have a triangle, then you have the two rectangles on top of that triangle, and as you can see, it's kind of smaller. As you can see, those two rectangles are smaller than the original rectangle. And then we'll repeat the process and we kind of repeat it, um, but notice that we get smaller each time, right? So we have another triangle and two rectangles, another triangle and two rectangles. And let's do it again. And we get another triangle and two rectangles, smaller versions on top of what we had before. And if we keep going, it gets smaller, smaller, smaller. And believe it or not, it'll reach a certain point where we can't really see it anymore. But it's pretty cute, right? It looks like a tree, does it not? So we'll investigate more of this kind of tree and graphs when we get to that exponential logarithmic functions. Speaking of functions, one good example of a function is the birthplace function. So I was born in Farmington, Missouri, and each of us has only one birthplace. And that means each of us has exactly one answer for the birthplace. So whenever you have something that has exactly one answer, we can represent a function with that. So the question or the problem is like the input, which is the x, and then the answer is like the we say notice you see f parentheses x that says f of x, or we can also see this as y. So x is like the input. So x is like the input, that's like the problem or the question, and y is the output, which is like the answer. So again, if everything has one answer, if you have a situation that has exactly one answer, then that's called a function. So each of these people have their birthplace, right? Kathy was born in Cape Cod, um, Dylan was born in Newport News, etc. And one example of a function is called the logarithm, which is pretty neat. Some people don't like logarithms. I understand that. It's kind of a strange thing. But in our class, we'll try to make them more understandable with some real life examples. Like for example, I live in Japan, and we can use this formula here, m equals the logarithm of I, or in short, log of I, to measure or to relate the strength and intensity of an earthquake, which is pretty necessary where I am. So we'll look more at that problem in Math 105. Okay, the next module is Consumer Math 2, where we talk about compound interest and mortgage. Also, those are very practical, especially with mortgages if you want to buy a house or even a car or a truck or just some land. The next module is statistics. Here we deal with some things called measures of center. One common measure of center is called the average or the mean. And we also deal with percentile, which is usually used whenever you take a test. Next is probability. We'll look at different probability formulas and odds. Probability is pretty neat because every time we make a decision to do something, we measure whether or not that decision is a good decision or a bad decision. And we usually inherently use probability to measure that. Whether we calculate it, it's a different story. But probably in our mind, subconsciously, we're using probability to discern whether or not a decision is a good one. And then finally, the last module is logic. So logic, we're going to talk about statements and Venn diagrams. So these are just ways to organize the thoughts behind certain logical constructs, which may be useful in the real life, directly or indirectly. All right, we'll look at more of that in Math 105. So that's all of the modules right there. Now, maybe you're wondering, what are we going to do inside of the class? Okay, so all this stuff is online in the ALEKS program that you'll see outside of class. So inside of class, we're going to look at four discussions, and these four discussions can range from anything involving math anxiety to um, certain errors we all might make in math. I make errors too, so I'm no stranger to that. So we'll talk a lot about that in class and share ideas with each other, and that should be a lot of fun. We also have three problem sets. So in problem sets, we're going to cover in class, we're going to cover some concepts behind these problem sets. And then after we cover the concepts or maybe some related examples, then we'll spend some time in class uh, helping each other with our own problem sets that are assigned. So to see the discussions on the problem sets, please come to class and we'll we'll reveal them to you and we'll go over them and practice on these with the hopes that all of us can help each other become better in these different kinds of math concepts um, that are in the problem sets as well as in ALEKS. And the last week is going to be a final exam, and that's also going to be in ALEKS. So that's online as well. So primarily, we'll do the discussions and the problem sets in our in-person class. All right, so that's basically what Math 105 is. I thank you so much for signing up for it, and I hope that Math 105 will be beneficial to you and fun for you, and I hope it can put you one step closer to uh, your degree endeavors. I thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you soon. Thank you.